Thank you, and thank you to the Mumbai Press Club for giving us this opportunity to address the media here on an issue which is not only a very topical, burning issue, but it's also a very important issue for our country, for our polity, for our democracy. When electoral bonds were introduced by Mr. Jaitley in 2017-18, he said that this was that the anonymity of the donors in the scheme, and this anonymity was enabled by making amendments in several acts, Companies Act, Income Tax Act, various acts, to enable anonymous donations to be made to political parties through electoral bonds. And he said anonymity is essential because the donors fear donating to opposition parties because of fear of being victimized by the ruling parties. This was the ostensible reason. At that time, when the bonds were being discussed, both the Election Commission as well as the Reserve Bank opposed them. Election Commission opposed them because they said that, well, people should know who is donating to whom. They also opposed them because they said that this will enable shell companies to donate to political parties. Reserve Bank opposed it for also the reason of the shell companies, also because they felt that, well, if such bonds are to be issued, it should be with the Reserve Bank, not with the State Bank of India. However, the government went ahead and said that the State Bank of India would be the issuing authority and it would hold the information. Eventually it came to become known that every bond, the bonds were supposed to be like currency notes, which were purchased from the State Bank and could be given to any political party. They could only be encashed by a political party. But it was found that they had a secret alphanumeric number which could be seen in ultraviolet light. And because the scheme said that the bonds could be encashed within only 15 days, therefore it was obligatory for the State Bank to verify when the bonds were presented for encashment as to whether this bond was purchased within the last 15 days or not. So therefore, they had to, at that very time of crediting the money to the political parties, match the number to see whether this bond number was purchased in the last 14 days or not. Therefore, the State Bank always knew which bond had been purchased by whom and given to which political party. And because the State Bank is controlled by the Government of India, therefore the Government of India could also easily have known as to who was donating the bonds to whom, thereby completely rubbishing the ostensible justification given by Mr. Jaitley. We challenged the bonds, the constitutionality of the bonds on various grounds, primarily on the ground that they violate the people's right to know as to who is funding the political parties. Secondly, that these bonds would enable, these anonymous donations would enable a lot of bribe money being paid to political parties by companies who are getting some favors from the governments controlled by these political parties. And therefore, and thirdly, we also said that this is going to destroy the level playing field in elections because all the bond money would only go to ruling parties in the center and in the states. And that's what we have found. Eventually, when the Supreme Court struck down the bonds and fortunately also ordered the data to be released, which the government and the State Bank were dragging their feet on. First they said we'll need 3.5-4 months more to give this data. When the Supreme Court said whatever, you already hold the raw data, give us the raw data. Then they gave the raw data without giving the bond numbers. Then the court was forced to ask them to give the bond numbers, and thereafter people were able to match the numbers within 2 minutes, and it became known as to which bond was purchased by which company and given to which party. All the fears that had been expressed at that time when these electoral bonds were coming in and which we had expressed in our petitions came out to be true. It now turns out that most of the electoral bonds have been given as quid pro quo arrangements by companies who were getting various favors from governments or from authorities controlled by governments, which were in turn controlled by the political parties to whom the bonds were being given. So we have cases, and we have also found that a large or substantial amount of bonds have been given by companies who had no profit, zero profits or huge losses, etc. And yet those parties had given. There was another amendment which was made at the time when the electoral bonds were brought, which was that they removed the limit on corporate donations to political parties. Earlier the limit was that no company could donate more than 7.5% of its profits to political parties. That limit was removed by an amendment. Fortunately, the Supreme Court has also struck down that amendment and restored back the earlier limit of 7.5%. Now, the data shows that the bulk of the bonds were purchased by companies and given to parties who were controlling governments, which gave those companies various benefits by way of giving them contracts. For example, here in Mumbai, there was this Mega Engineering fraudulent company. I have been doing corruption cases involving this company in the Supreme Court, which got a contract of 14,000 crores for some tunnel. 14,000, hai na? Something like that. Here from the Maharashtra government. And this contract is given to them within a month of their donating 140 crores by way of electoral bonds to the BJP. Of course, this company has donated a huge amount of money, more than 1,000 crores, and more than 50% to the BJP alone. So what we have found is that quid pro quo arrangements are clear, of various kinds of quid pro quo arrangements by which electoral bonds have been given. Bonds given and monies given, hundreds of crores given for getting contracts. Bonds given for changing government policy to suit that company. So for example, there was this Grasim Industries import policy was changed in their favor, and they gave a large amount of electoral bonds to the BJP, which had the power to change the policy. Bharti Telecom gave large amount of money through electoral bonds to the BJP at a time when they were bidding for this satellite spectrum, which by the government changed the policy from auction to nomination in order to avoid an auction and give it by nomination to this Bharti Telecom. There are bonds that have been given when companies have been raided or show cause notices issued by ED, IT, CBI, etc. Thereafter bonds are given. Large amounts of money by way of electoral bonds are given, and thereafter the investigation or the action by the ED, IT, CBI goes into cold storage. Today there is this report about this Kotak Bank, or NBFC, which ran into regulatory hurdles with the Reserve Bank. Those people also purchased and gave hundreds of crores worth, 60 crores or kitna hai, a large amount of money to the BJP through electoral bonds, and thereafter the RBI kind of settled the matter with them in court proceedings. So all these cases have shown that the fears that we had expressed at the time when we challenged the electoral bond scheme have turned out to be true. That quid pro quo, money laundering, everything went on in the guise of electoral bonds. So the question is, what should be done? You see, you remember the 2G case or the Colgate case, where the court quashed the 2G licenses as well as the coal mining leases by holding that the grant of the spectrum as well as the mining leases without auction was arbitrary. And the court cancelled those and ordered court-monitored investigations into both those cases. And thereafter, many prosecutions, many people were charge-sheeted, many prosecutions took place. Here, in this particular case, see, there was no money trail. When the court ordered, there was only evidence of arbitrary allocations. Here, there is clear money trail. Even this fellow, Aurobindo Pharma, this Sarath Reddy, I mean, that fellow gives some 60 crores to the BJP. He is charge-sheeted in this Delhi liquor scam. He is made an approver. He is allowed to get bail by the ED, saying that it has no objection to his being given bail. So he is allowed to virtually get away scot-free, and he gives 60 crores, and yet they have arrested people, the Chief Minister, Kejriwal and others, against whom there is no money trail at any rate. I don't know whether there was any hanky-panky in the grant of liquor licenses or in the change of liquor policy or not. But certainly you cannot arrest a Chief Minister on the basis of the statement of an approver. And an approver who is himself guilty, who is saying that I have given 100 crores and who has been caught giving 60 crores to the BJP for letting him off. So therefore, that is why, you see, Nirmala Sitharaman's husband, Parkala Prabhakar, says that this is the biggest scam, not just in India, but the biggest scam globally. And the reason why he's saying that is, you see, it's not total electoral bonds were about 16,000 crores. Let's assume 10,000 crores are given by way of quid pro quo, etc. It is not this 10,000 crores figure which is important. What is important is, what has this 10,000 crores done? It has given contract worth several lakh crores to the companies who gave these bribes. It has avoided, so a lot of the bonds have been given to avoid ED, IT, CBI action. The recoveries in those cases could have been lakhs of crores. In order to avoid recovery of lakhs of crores, you have taken these few thousand crores by way of electoral bonds. Similarly, you have taken these bribes from companies who were facing action by the pharmaceutical regulator, pharmaceutical companies who had substandard drugs, in order to allow those substandard drugs to remain in the market. So you are destroying the health of crores of people in the country by this bribery racket through electoral bonds. And that is why he rightly says, Parkala Prabhakar, that this is the biggest scam in the history of this country and perhaps anywhere in the world. And that is why we need a court-monitored SIT in this matter, because no agency, CBI, ED are all involved in it. The investigation that is needed is who were the people involved in this conspiracy to give the bribe, to take the bribe, and to award the contracts, or to avoid, or to stall, or put the ED-IT action in cold storage. So the people who have to be identified, there are 4 parties involved in these transactions. There are people of the company, there are people of the political party, there are people of the government who gave the contracts or who made the policy changes, and there are people of those government or regulatory agencies like ED, CBI, IT, drug controller, etc., who took their hands off the investigations or the actions that they were taking. So therefore, all this needs to be investigated by a special investigating team, which would have to be independent of these agencies. It should be a team which should be formed on the orders of the Supreme Court by selecting a retired Supreme Court judge who should supervise this investigation, and some maybe retired officers of CBI with impeccable integrity, with known impeccable integrity, who should be investigating this, because you certainly cannot give this investigation to the existing CBI or the existing ED or any of these existing investigative agencies. This is one case which needs an SIT.
Stay ahead with our cutting-edge news app. Instantly access the latest shorts in just 1 minute and breaking news in just 50 words. Download now for a smarter, faster news experience.